It was just another ordinary night until the phone rang. The hours had settled into their usual rhythm, a slow dance between the humdrum of a late-night television show and the lazy flicker of the lamplight. The world outside was quiet, as if holding its breath, caught in the peaceful monotony of a Wednesday evening. It was then that the trill of the phone cut through the silence, a jarring note in the quiet symphony of the night. I remember the surprise, the sudden jolt of adrenaline that had me on my feet, crossing the room in 3 quick strides to pick up the receiver. A woman's voice, shaky and breathless, filled my ear. She sounded like she was running, her words tumbling out in a rushed whisper. She was panicked, her voice ice-cold with fear. And then she said a name, my name. It was like a punch to the gut, a cold shock that left me reeling. I tried to ask her who she was, what was happening, but she was already gone, her words hanging in the air like a ghost. The line went dead, the silence filling the room once more, heavier now, charged with a sense of unease. The name she had mentioned, it was familiar, a name that had been a part of my life, a name that carried with it a history, a past. It was a name I had tried to forget, a name that now echoed in my mind, a haunting refrain. I stood there, the phone still clutched in my hand, the dial tone a distant drone in my ear. The room felt colder, the shadows deeper, the silence louder. The ordinary had been shattered, replaced by an unsettling mystery, a question mark that hung in the air, sending shivers down my spine. I was left holding the phone, the dial tone echoing in my ear, wondering who that woman was. I couldn't shake off the name she mentioned. I knew I'd heard it somewhere. There was something about it, an echo from my past that refused to be silenced, as if it was a melody of a song that you've long forgotten, but the moment you hear it, the lyrics come rushing back. I began to dig deep into the caverns of my memory, sifting through the sands of time. It felt like I was trying to catch a feather in a gust of wind. It was there on the tip of my tongue, but it kept eluding my grasp. Then, like a bolt from the blue, it hit me. The name, the voice, everything fell into place. It was a name I hadn't thought of in years, a name from a time when life was simpler, when days were filled with laughter, not dread. It was the name of my old friend, my confidant, my partner in crime. His name was Danny. Danny and I were inseparable, 2 peas in a pod. We shared everything from our dreams to our fears. But one day, Danny vanished. No goodbyes, no farewell notes, just an empty space where a lively soul once existed. His disappearance was a mystery that haunted our small town. Rumours swirled, theories sprouted, but no one knew what happened to Danny. The police found no leads, his family was left in despair, and slowly but surely Danny's name faded from our conversations. He became a ghost of our past, a spectre that haunted our dreams. But now his name had resurfaced. The woman on the phone, her voice quivering with fear, had breathed life into a ghost. Why did she mention Danny's name? What was the connection? My mind was a whirlpool of questions, my heart pounded in my chest like a drum. I was certain now. The name she said, it was him, my old friend who vanished without a trace years ago. The realization sent a shiver down my spine. I knew then that I had to find out what happened to Danny, not just for him, but for the boy who lost his best friend all those years ago. I knew I had to find out more, I just had to. The words echoed in my mind like a haunting melody that wouldn't let me rest. My friend was out there somewhere, and an eerie phone call was the only lead I had. I started by visiting the places we used to hang out, the old diner we'd frequent after school, the abandoned warehouse where we'd tell each other ghost stories, the park where we'd spent countless afternoons. Each location was like stepping into a memory, a moment from our past frozen in time, but now cast in a grim shadow of uncertainty and fear. I spoke with our mutual friends, shared the strange phone call, and asked if they'd seen or heard from him. Their reactions ranged from concern to confusion, but no one had any answers. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. And yet, there was this unshakable feeling that I was on the right track, that I was getting closer to something, The strangest part of it all was this constant sensation of being watched. It was subtle at first, just a prickling at the back of my neck, but the more I delved into the mystery, the stronger it became. I'd catch fleeting glimpses of shadows darting around corners, hear soft whispers just out of earshot, feel a chill run down my spine, even in the warmest of rooms. I tried to brush it off, convince myself it was just my nerves playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. There was something lurking in the shadows, something that didn't want me to find my friend. But fear wasn't going to stop me. The stakes were too high, the mystery too deep. I had to keep going, had to uncover the truth, no matter how terrifying it might be. Everywhere I went, I felt eyes on me, but I couldn't stop, not now. It was like I was being followed. But whenever I turned around, no one was there. The sense of being watched clung to me like a second skin, a constant prickling on the back of my neck that made me question every shadow and every sound. It was a relentless pursuit, an unseen stalker that lurked just beyond the corner of my eye. Every time I thought I caught a glimpse, a fleeting outline or a swift movement, it vanished. It was a phantom presence, a ghost in the machine that left me on edge and questioning my own sanity. It was like playing a game of cat and mouse, only I was the mouse and the cat was invisible. Then the phone calls started again, but this time they were different. Instead of the familiar voice that had haunted me before, there was silence. A silence so thick and heavy it was almost as if I could feel it pressing against my ear, its weight suffocating me. The number was unknown, a string of digits that didn't make sense, a code that I couldn't crack. I was drawn to that silence, captivated by the unknown. It was like a puzzle that I had to solve, a mystery that I had to unravel. The more I delved into it, the more unsettling it became. The silence was deafening. It drowned out all other sounds, consuming me in its void. The calls were frequent, relentless. It was as if the unknown caller was trying to communicate with me, trying to tell me something. But what? What was the message hidden in the silence? I was desperate for answers, desperate to understand. I was on edge, constantly looking over my shoulder. The fear was a constant companion, a shadow that followed me wherever I went. But despite the fear, I was closer to the truth. I could feel it. The pieces were falling into place. The puzzle was slowly coming together. The unseen threat was becoming visible, and I was ready to face it. I was so close I could almost touch it. But then my heart pounded in my chest. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, my mind racing with the possibilities. I'd been searching for my friend for what felt like an eternity, the mystery of his disappearance gnawing at me, refusing to let me rest. And then out of nowhere I stumbled upon a clue, a tiny piece of the puzzle that had eluded me for so long. An old, faded photograph. There he was, standing in front of a dilapidated building, a place I didn't recognize. My heart skipped a beat. Could this be the key to finding him? I could hardly contain my excitement. But just as I was about to dig deeper, my phone rang, jolting me out of my thoughts. The display showed an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered, my heart pounding. "Hello?" I asked, my voice a mere whisper. It was him, his voice so familiar and yet so distant echoed through the line. My heart stopped. "Stop looking for me," he said. His voice was weak, barely a whisper, lost in a sea of static. I could hardly believe it. Was this some kind of cruel joke? But it was him, I could tell. The way he spoke, the way he breathed, it was unmistakably him. My mind raced, 1,000 questions flooding in. Where was he? Was he okay? Why had he disappeared? But before I could ask anything, the line went dead. I was left standing there, the phone still pressed against my ear, the silence deafening. The clue I'd found, the photograph, it suddenly felt insignificant. The mystery had deepened, the shadows lengthening, but the fear, the uncertainty, it didn't matter. My friend was out there somewhere, and I couldn't give up on him. I wouldn't. His voice was weak, barely a whisper. "Stop looking for me," he said. And then the line went dead. The words echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the unresolved mystery that lay ahead. But I knew, deep down, that I couldn't give up. I wouldn't. Not until I found him. not until the mystery was solved.